Before the Ages, the Ages of Man by Icantor of Shimmerine, Timeline Series, Volume 1. Before man came to rule Tamriel, and before the chronicles of the historians recorded the affairs of the rulers of Tamriel, the events of our world are known only through myths and legends, and through the divinely inspired teachings of the 9 divines. For convenience, the historians divide the distant ages of prehistory into 2 broad periods of time, the Dawn Era and the Metheric Era. The Dawn Era. The Dawn Era is that period before the beginning of mortal time, when the feats of the gods take place. The Dawn Era ends with the exodus of the gods and magic from the world and the founding of the Adamantine Tower. The term Metheric comes from the Nordic literally meaning the era of elves. The Metheric Era is the Murtheric Era, a prehistoric time after the exodus of the gods' magic from the world at the founding of Adamantine Tower and before the arrival of Ysgramor, the Nord, and Tamriel. The following are the most notable events through the Dawn Era, presented roughly in sequence as it must be understood by creatures of time such as ourselves. The cosmos formed from the Orbus, chaos or totality, by Anu and Padome. Akatosh, Ariel, formed time began. The gods, Et Ada, formed. Lorcan convinced or tricked the gods into creating the mortal plane. Nirn. The mortal plane was at this point highly magical and dangerous. As the gods walked, the physical makeup of the world, the mortal plane, and even the timeless continuity of the existence itself became unstable. When Magic Magnus, architect of the plans for the mortal world, decided to terminate the project, the gods convened at Adamantine Tower, Durrani Tower, the oldest known structure in Tamriel, and decided what to do. Most left when magic did, others sacrificed themselves into other forms that they might stay. The Elthony, Lorcan, was condemned by the gods to exile in the mortal realms, and his heart was torn out and cast from the tower. Where it landed, a volcano formed with magic in the mythic sense, gone, and the cosmos stabilized. Elven history, finally linear, began. Emmy 2500. The Mitheric Era. The Mitheric Era was figured by early Nord scholars as a series of years numbered in reverse order backward from the beginning of time. The founding of the Camoran dynasty, first recorded as the year 0 of the first era. The prehistoric events of the Metheric Era are listed here with their traditional Nordic Metheric dates. The earliest Metheric date cited by King Harold scholars was Metheric Era 2500, the Nordic reckoning of the first year of time. As such, the Metheric Era extends from the Metheric Era 2500 and the distant past to Metheric Era Year 1, the year before the founding of the Camoran dynasty and the establishment of the White Gold Tower as an independent city-state. According to King Harold's bards, Metheric Era 2500 was the date of construction of the Adamantine Tower on Balthiria Island in High Rock, the oldest known structure of Tamriel. This corresponds roughly to the earliest historical dates given in various unpublished Elvish chronicles. During the early Metheric Era, the aboriginal beast peoples of Tamriel, the ancestors of the Khajiit, Aragonian, Orcish, and other beast folk, lived in the pre-literate communities throughout Tamriel. In the Middle Metheric Era, the Aldmeri mortals of Elven origin, refugees, left their doomed and now lost continents of Aldmeris, also known as Old Elfone, and settled it southwestern Tamriel. The first colonies were distributed at wide intervals on islands along the entire coast of Tamriel. Later, inland settlements were founded primarily in fertile lowlands in the southwest and central Tamriel. Wherever the beast folk encountered the elves, the sophisticated, literate, technologically advanced Aldmeri cultures displaced the primitive beast folk into the jungles, marshes, and mountains, and wastelands. The adamantine tower was rediscovered and captured by the Direni, a prominent and powerful Aldmeri clan. The Crystal Tower was built on Somerset Isle and later White Gold Tower in Cyrodiil. During the Middle Metheric era, the Aldmeri explorers mapped the coasts of Vardenfell, building the first era High Elven Wizard towers at Alt Rhianna, Balfell, Talaroon, and Talmora, Morrowind. It was also during that period that the Aelid, wild elven settlements, flourished in the jungle surrounding the White Gold Tower, present-day Cyrodiil. Wild elves, known as the Heartland High Elves, preserved the Dawn era, magics and language of Elfoni, ostensibly a tribute land to the High King of Alinor. The Heartland's long lines of communication from the Somerset Isles sovereignty effectively isolated Cyrodiil from the High Kings at Crystal Tower. The late Middle Metheric era is the period of high Velothi culture. The Chimer, ancestors of the modern Dunmer, or Dark Elves, were dynamic, ambitious, long-lived elven clans devoted to the fundamentalist ancestor worship. The Chimer clans followed the prophet Veloth, the ancestral elven homelands in the southwest to settle in the lands now known as Morrowind. Despising the secular culture and profane practices of the Dwemer, the Chimer also coveted the lands and resources of the Dwemer, and for centuries provoked them with minor raids and territorial disputes. The Dwemer, otherwise known as dwarves, free-thinking, reclusive elven clans devoted to the secrets of science, engineering, and alchemy, established underground cities and communities in the mountain range. Later, the Velothi Mountains, separating the modern Skyrim and Morrowind. The late Metheric era marks the precipitous decline of Velothi culture. Some Velothi settled in villages near the declining and abandoned ancient Velothi towers. During this period, Velothi high culture disappeared on Vardenfell Island. The earliest Dwemer freehold colonies date from this period. Degenerate Velothi devolved into tribal cultures which in time evolved into the modern great houses of Morrowind, or persisted as the barbaric Ashlander tribes. The only surviving traces of this tribal culture are scattered Velothi towers and Ashlander nomads on Vardenfell Island. The original First Era High Elven Wizard towers along the coast of Tamriel were also abandoned about this time. It was in the late Metheric era that the pre-literate humans, the so-called Medic peoples from the continent of Atmora, also Altmora, or the Elderwood in Altmaris, migrated and settled in the northern Tamriel. The Nord culture hero Ysgramor, leader of a great colonizing fleet to Tamriel, is credited with developing a runic transcription of Nord speech based on Elvish principles, and so Ysgramor is considered the first human historian. Ysgramor's fleet landed on Hizarek Head at the extreme northern tip of Skyrim's Broken Cape. The Nords built there the legendary city of Sarthal. The elves drove the men away during the Night of Tears, but Ysgramor soon returned with his 500 companions. Also during the late Metheric era, the legendary immortal hero, warrior, sorcerer, and king, variously known as Perennial Whitestrake, Harold Harry Breeks, Ysmer, Hans the Fox, etc., wandered Tamriel, gathering armies, conquering lands, and ruling, then abandoning his kingdoms to wander again.